Watch Kelly roll.
I'm a roll. Watch me roll. Okay. I have something special for you all. I hope it is special. Okay. I'll just start. It's gonna feel more like a performance piece than a traditional presentation. So I hope you enjoy. 2 years ago, I stood at a crossroads, stuck between an infinite, receding realm of possibilities and a molten rock of actualized energy. Weak-willed, I could not manage deciding upon the right relationship between the two. I could not move. A pitiful poet, I expressed my position in a work titled Insufficient Reason. I would like to share that with you all. Given my distinct heavenly nature clearly, my unprincipled body is at odds with its own movement. Should it determine itself through resistance and aim its actions against its gravitational center towards the unknown expanse of things so that it abstracts itself from any commitment to the seductive substance, causing tempestuous revelations over its absolute condition? It will never reach its object, as such an end is ever disclosing, and such an attempt at escape will forever be marked by its initial impotence. Impotence, maybe. However, should it succumb to the pressures of immanence and buckle under the weight of covenanted cosmic culmination with consensual content, it will plummet into endless fires of fusion and fission. Cycling so until eternity collapses in on itself, so that my common sense resolves, under the incorrigible pretext of such confusion, to contract a constitutional eclipse over the value of my corporeal position, in order to absolve my conscience of the immobile nature of my imprisonment, so that I may continue to revolve around my origins with only the appearance of, or repeating my abiding run-on sentence with only the appearance of semicolons to provide me momentary cadential release, through sanctioned sequential addenda, punctuated some creative purpose in my recurring for naught. You all, I was so tired of recurring for naught. I could no longer stand idly by as my life wasted away. Pitiful poetry, the only thing I had to show for the world of my presence. I could no longer stand the sound of my voice. I could no longer stand myself, so I put an end to myself. I adorned myself with a purpose neglected in a pile of dirty purposes in the corner. No one was using it. The following resulted from my wardrobe change. And this is entitled, I Need My Computer Back, because this loner blows chunks. Time to reboot. And that's what this is all about. I'm going to reboot myself. Lawn Chair Philosophy and the Crisis of American Wisdom, a philosophical call to action. I do not believe it controversial to claim that American culture presents a hostile environment for elevated intellectual philosophy. Classical concepts such as beauty, harmony, eudaimonia, peace, temperance, and even the ideas related to skepticism have no place in a world of commercial excess. Pettier forms, if you will, such as sex, competition, and money set the scene. A liberal education must productively serve those ideals, else it gets the axe. But philosophical exchanges directly built from those ideals do not sell. The majority of consumers do not want to hear philosophers fighting with each other and vying for academic power. Such debate is perceived as elitist masturbation. That is, unless philosophical debate is left to the devices of the political sphere, in which case vying for power potentially holds dark consequences against which most folks tend to get so fired up that any gateway towards elevated intellectual philosophy is completely lost. Besides, elevated intellectual philosophy must be realized upon stronger conceptual foundations than allowed by the vagaries of the political sphere in order that its prestigious, sagacious essence not be completely contradicted. Lawn chair philosophy is partly a response to this crisis in philosophy. LCP believes in the power that elevated intellectual philosophy holds. With it, most people might possess the rational tools to create a deep world of meaning and self-actualization all their own, which otherwise would sit obscurely beyond their grasp in ever-defunded libraries and classrooms. But how is elevated intellectual philosophy to present itself, successfully advertise for itself to the result of popular use and funding without selling out and compromising its classical values? How can it speak through American culture, a globalizing culture, a culture seemingly so antithetical to the values of elevated intellectual philosophy that the end of its great history sits near? Its tone cannot be perceived as paternal or elitist. Americans have no patience for condescension. And it cannot be perceived as completely frivolous, though it must be entertaining. We here at LCP believe that elevated intellectual philosophy must command the attention of its intended audience, those who identify with American culture. While gently introducing its rational rigors and truth, it must be fruitful, it must be approachable. In short, it must be magic. By this, I do not mean sorcery or witchcraft. Elevated intellectual philosophy must be a captivating performance in order to draw the attention, participation, and funding that we so desperately need. It must be grounded, realistic, and impactful. I have a 4-step plan to stage and execute such production. Number 1, metaphysically fruitful axioms. I propose that we ought to forge a phenomenologically inspired space out of the uninterrupted flow of the life world, a space where participants suspend their natural concerns and efficiently engage in self-reflection while simultaneously directing attention to any intellectual content immediately present for them without submerging them in discussion taxingly too far removed from their practical concerns. We can't have people stuck in the phenomenological attitude, we need to make money, or, I find it fun to be stuck in the phenomenological attitude, but I can tell you what, it makes no money. So anyways, I believe that if built according to the structures of Husserl's inner phenomenological time consciousness, this space may theoretically house multitudes, as it will have as its foundation the original pattern for the ontological emergence of all objective measure, no matter its mode or variation, and the act of suspending one's natural concerns might be therapeutically attractive to most Americans. It's also a space wherein participants intersubjectively create in real time together. Such direct involvement on multifarious levels is uplifting and empowering. However, Husserl's technical language and method is not the most attractive, not the least exhausting, and he does not make clear, in neither layman's nor professional terms, a meaningful path back to one's natural concerns. So, for our proposed magical purposes, I believe that clear axioms which tacitly mirror and embody as well as extend Husserl's message will do the trick. A. Our purpose is that of cultivating a vibrant philosophical community based upon feminist principles of inclusion and equality. We welcome all who uphold these values to feast at our table, all who wish to invest their time and heart into this space, no matter their background, and do not believe it a contradiction of these principles to exclude those who compromise the sanctity of our purpose with elitist nonsense, at least of the damaging persuasion. Deal with it. B. Understanding depends on equality, and equality depends on difference. Without an open, respectable stance towards thy neighbor, there is no opportunity for open, respectable dialogue over the worth of our common rational goods. Our standard of measure is just exchange, and our depth grows exponentially whenever applied. The more we let inside, stocks are up. C. In order to properly house multifarious perspectives, we need structures unmatched by the likes of iron and steel. We need an aesthetic condition. Philosophy is done through blood, sweat, and logically ordered tears. Yes, of course. But without an original, spontaneous, playful exploration and expression of the greater questions with which we are communally engaged, there is no sense to make sense of in the first place. No real active unification upon which to lay objective claims. Beauty is catharsis, guide, and product. Capital A, all in one with a capital O. With such axioms in place, we can create an efficient space where participants may reflectively measure and express themselves and their interrelations with their world and many other worlds simultaneously. They aren't taken too far from reality and the practical sphere because they have merely suspended it. They can watch reality's influence from within the phenomenological space and bring their own experience into the room, cushioned and elevated through beauty. We have no need for thought experiments that are far removed from one's reality. Trolley experiment. One may draw directly from one's own life and have a smooth transition back into the real world when return is necessary. And without needing to know the specifics of the transcendental logic stemming from time consciousness, which secures and preserves this phenomenological/metaphysical space, participants may use it to create a world for themselves most conducive to their highest advantage. The image of the lawn chair symbolizes the mobilizing capacities which our brand of reflective thought offers. Step 2, a mythos. To flesh out and counterbalance the dry axiomatic bones of LCP's body of works, I am developing an animated series which indexically expresses its structural and atmospheric principles in motion, will tickle and delight the American imagination, provides American culture with a facelift into the heavens of ancient wisdom traditions without agitating any personal, religious, or political tastes that our mass target audience may have amassed. It will represent a philosophical attitude that pokes fun at itself, while still yet remaining true to its studious purpose. The series is set in the titular province of Westopia. I have a map here. It's a land occupying the space between perceptual moments, a metaphysical space born out of the phenomenological imagination, unifying the eidetic realm and that of real natural content. Its substance is both material and immaterial. Its fabric, the rhythmically manifested LCP metaphysical landscape. Lady Sophia, who smokes a pack of Virginia Slims a day and whose blood is composed of sweet tea and sangria, rules over the comically fragmented yet unified territories of Westopia with heart, sass, and splendor. She is advised by her equally heartfelt and sassy gay best friend, Philo. Each territory within Westopia represents a different aspect of the Western philosophical tradition. We have the academic nucleus here in the center. It's a fixed entity which governs the day-to-day operations of Westopia and an apodictic language that no one understands and only accepts formal information abstracted from representatives of each of the territories. We have the fertile valley over here, home of the plains of truth, which are harvested for nutrition and trade. We have the Mount of Rare Things, housing ancient relics, wisdom, and sages. We have the aggressive play arena where laymen ostensibly argue with each other for the sake of truth to no real end, and it is the only territory in Westopia where Sophia refuses to appear when invoked. The Therapeutai River, where one may cleanse one's hermeneutical lens in its pure, clear waters, and where Captain Willis's pleasure barge periodically exploits. We have the Skeptic Forest, where left is right, down is up, and whose roots stretch underneath the soil of the whole province so that upon its fancy, it may engulf the whole of Westopia in its convoluted tangle of trees and magical creatures. The Field of Musical Merriments here in the corner, which sits beyond the forest and is home to the Mobius Band, a musical group of scruffy, unfocused misfits from different territories within Westopia charged with rationally measuring and reporting to the static academic nucleus the whole of the province's ebbs, flows, and mood. We have a cave of secrets, a dark realm of whispers and shadows, leaving all visitors disoriented and deranged. And finally, we have the shores of the horizon, which welcomes waves from the surrounding vast sea of possibilities and docks ships setting sail towards the realm beyond Westopia, necessary reality. The pilot episode begins with a breakdown in communication between the Mobius Band and the academic nucleus. The musicians' disheveled, informal, adventurous nature prevents them from translating their measurements into a language that the very formal scientific nucleus understands. The nucleus wants strict regimented timekeep, and it cannot digest the results of the band's improvisational polyrhythms. The band cannot translate their improv into apodictic form while in the midst of performing, as they can never precisely recall what they did. And whenever they find that strict time is called for, whenever they express their findings dealing with the province's regulated motions, they cannot keep strict time to save their lives. Even when it comes to the most basic of ostinato patterns, they aren't exactly the tightest group in existence. And the band of merry musicians are frustrated with the often cold, curt mannerisms of the members of the nucleus. They stop attempting to report their findings altogether. Desperate for order, Lady Sophia seeks out a drummer, for the Mobius band, someone who can keep strict time as well as loose time and work with the academic nucleus to develop a transcendental logic based in music theory, which keeps up with the band's complex rhythms in real time. She finds the right match in Miss Animal, a drummer from the realm of necessary reality. Animal finds that she has her work cut out for her with the Mobius band and with expressing the universal rhythms of time consciousness, unifying the comically fragmented territories of Westopia. And the rest of the series follows her around as she gets to know Westopia, its inhabitants, and what makes it tick, its history, its nucleus, as she finds her place and builds her home amidst this chaotic community. So that is step 2. If you'd like to pass that around, take a look, you may. Okay, step 3 in my plan, a hands-on heuristics. This proposed phenomenological community extends the fun from the storyline into the rigorous realm of learning and growth, as Miss Animal will serve as a friendly welcome wagon with her aesthetically driven introductory lessons, both online and in person, at the LCP Academy. Her philosophy lessons revolve in some way around art and/or a music project involving multiple dimensions of knowing for a fuller take on the material than mere logic alone can afford. Through creative engagement with the material, students of all skill levels can actively track their subjective stance towards the objective knowledge at hand. This allows students to reflectively represent not only the material, but the original moment of comprehension as well, providing an index to their own unified mind. For further exploration, students can develop their own expressive significations to match any technical terms they encounter, conditioning a bridge built from their own original language and experiences. Uplifting their own personal language is something worthy of elevated intellectual philosophy. The hands-on heuristics method provides approachable, measurable guidelines so that independent students may clearly track their progress. The lessons are set up to allow layering. A student may build their understanding from the rudimentary foundations of the introductory work as they delve further into the details, and students may reference their artwork if they ever get lost in those details. As they move along in the material, Miss Animal will introduce students to other professional philosophers who may provide more nuanced and advanced interpretations to the text. She will act more as an adventure hostess, leading students on a philosophical adventure through the community, through many worlds, through a buffet of thought. Of course, she will have her hands all over Husserl's lessons, but I want to make sure that the LCP Academy stays true to its axiomatic roots in difference and inclusion. It should celebrate what everyone brings to the table, so Miss Animal will call upon her friends to help craft this vision, which necessarily extends beyond my purview. That is step 3. And step 4, we have a community of care. I propose that we present ourselves as a unified community which takes care of itself. Currently, on the whole, philosophers do not present to the world a very welcoming environment. And my personal pursuits in academic and extracurricular philosophy, I've been homeless, penniless, vehicleless, and my story is hardly unique. No red-blooded American who bears witness to hard-working men and women losing their trucks will want to join them in such a shame. They will drive their trucks far, far away in the other direction. Gone are the days where the traditional academy can properly house philosophers. While it still wields much power, academia just does not have the funds to go around for philosophers in mass. So while it adjusts to the demands of consumer culture, we must band together, take care of each other, and provide a cushion of support for our newcomers. I've started a nonprofit which I believe can provide clear direction. That's the Lawn Chair Philosophy Foundation. So the legal structures are all there. We just need to fill it with content. So first and foremost, this nonprofit is about serving our local community. I believe we ought to put our best feet forward and demonstrate our practical faculties to ensure that we are perceived as more than merely self-interested intellectuals out to avoid manual labor. For now, the service is simple enough. Donate carefully curated philosophy libraries to local homeless shelters and halfway houses. Once we build momentum in that regard, we can build new library packages to fill in the gaps of the traditional Western canon based on various topics, themes, and cultures and/or subcultures. We can then pair the hands-on heuristic lessons and the story of Westopia with the books and the library packages and offer direct lines of communication between participating residents with questions and vetted philosophers. Eventually, I would like for the nonprofit to have its own building where it may host in-person classes, serve meals, and offer philosophically inclined child daycare so that the parents may study without worrying over the whereabouts or their wandering minds. And I specifically want to host a Philosopher Queen program to help some of our most vulnerable constituents, providing special classes for fierce, independent women in need of philosophy. We can offer private tutors and educational mentors to help them navigate through the local collegiate terrain and ensure that the location is staffed with counselors to help with any emotional turmoil that might emerge during philosophical adventuring. And then we can make sure that we are properly compensated for our work. It is if the nonprofit takes off, then teachers can teach without worrying about department meetings over this and that ridiculous minutia, for we will have a board and a philosopher-in-chief to take care of all of that. We can establish a journal of top-notch alternative experimental work, which actually pays its contributors and remains readily available to our audience at a sliding cost scale. We can work alongside the traditional academy, inspiring new philosophers to take on the collegiate challenges, providing a safety net while they are in school, and ultimately filling the seats of the ever-shrinking philosophy classroom, making philosophy programs more attractive to big donors. If we can fill in the gaps that plague the traditional academy from the outside, while earning ourselves some cash and thriving with original creative projects, which the traditional academy just can't fund at the moment, we can help create more space for ourselves within the walls of the tower, so to speak. And I believe this plan allows everyone to win. I believe I smell magic afoot. Or maybe I just stepped in something. I don't know. So that is my 4-step plan. I'll turn this recording off.